Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to this Frame Quilting Friday video. Today, I have gotten a new quilt basted up on my long arm. It's ready to go, and I decided to stitch it with a very simple design, kind of a curved echo ditching using my mini slide ruler. So let's get on the machine. I'll show you how I've marked the quilt to give me a little bit of a registration line, and then how I'm going to quilt it with this simple curve. So these are 5-inch blocks. So what I'm doing is just taking a regular ruler and measuring 2.5 inches from a seam line to the middle and making a mark. And what that's allowing me to do is basically just, it's a guideline. So I can line up that center etched line on the ruler with that guideline in the middle of the block, in the middle of that line. And that way, as I'm stitching that curve, I'm going to come around, and the apex of the curve, the widest or deepest part of the curve is going to be right in the middle of the block. So here we go. Just going to press firmly and then steer the machine around. And when I get down here, I'm really kind of fiddling with it ever so slightly. I want to make sure that the needle ends up right in that corner. You know, sometimes I'm a little bit off here and there, but really my goal is to hit that corner just exactly right. Okay, so now I'm going to line up again this way. And visually, this can feel like you're a million miles away because you can see just how far the edge of my ruler is away from that seam line. But keep in mind, this is a 1/4 inch spacing. The needle is right in the center of a 1/2 inch foot, which means that from the needle to the edge of the foot is a 1/4 inch. So down here, I want to just eyeball the 1/4 inch from the edge of the quilt. That's where I really want the needle to go. That's really where I'm aiming. And I'm just trying to eyeball the placement of that ruler so it's going to guide me the best way. Once I get the ruler in position, just really a matter of pressing it firmly and then steering the machine. Now, I want this to be continuous line. I really want this to be fluid. And right now I'm having to do just a little bit of backtracking. So I've not gotten the right format for my lines yet, and I'm going to work on that. So I'm going to go right back across again, and I'll talk through how to plan this kind of design, this kind of curvy echo ditching, so that way you have the least amount of backtracking. What I mean by that is I've just stitched that line, and now I'm going back across that edge of the quilt, just like so. It's not that bad, but I mean, that's just a little bit of stitching I don't really need to do. I've already got a line of basting there for attaching the quilt to the frame. And, you know, it's just one of those things, it's just a little bit redundant. So when I plan out my design, really it's just, you know, kind of running my finger over the quilt and planning out where I'm going. And what I pretty much figured out is if I bounce over, I could go down, back up, bounce over, down, over, and back up. Now the problem with that is, as I've already established this row, I would be leaving things unquilted. Don't really want to do that. So I think for this first row, I'm going to continue this same pattern that I've already established. You know, once you establish a pattern, just stick with it. Even if you're having to do just a little bit of backtracking, you know, even if your line just isn't exactly perfect and it's not as, you know, 100% optimized as it could be, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just continue that pattern, because trying to hop, skip, and jump, you know, around and fill in spaces that I might miss if I change my pattern, that would be more annoying, I think, than just simply stitching, doing a little bit of back stitching here and there. Okay, so now I'm rotating around this way, and I find it whenever when I have the ruler on this side, it's just ever so slightly easier. It just feels more natural. It just looks a little bit strange because, of course, the curve, it just seems like I'm stitching such a tiny amount of a curve, and then you add that 1/4 inch in, and then it makes sense. But it is one of those things that I'm kind of visually, I'm always looking at going, is that right? Is that right? And I have to remind myself about that 1/4 inch spacing. And I am planning on doing some fun things within all of these blocks. I just wanted to get the quilt nice and stabilized, you know, to get a nice pattern established on the surface first. And that's where this kind of curvy design, you know, honestly, I could quilt it with this and then call it done. I've got a batting in the middle of this quilt. It's a polyester batting that I know allows quilting up to 12 inches. So honestly, this is as much quilting as this quilt needs. but I'm wanting to get some practice at quilting very densely, quilting on a very, very small scale, which is something I really haven't pursued a lot with my long arm. I've been really focusing on a lot of big designs, a lot of big swirling shapes, and getting quilts done quickly. And now I'm really wanting to hone my skills for very precise micro stippling, from very tiny designs, and that is going to require, some space to play in. And I figured all of these nice black squares and these bright orange squares would be a good place to try out different designs, experiment, and of course make a lot of ugly stitches as I get control over the long arm. Okay, so I'm just going to keep stitching on down, and I will meet you back here when we're ready to start the next row, and I'll talk through a little bit of a faster pattern that will allow us to speed through this just a little bit easier. So I reached the end of the quilt, I stitched along that edge, and I'm down here 1/4 inch from the edge of the quilt. I'm going to position the ruler right here, and again, kind of eyeball that center line through the middle of that square, and then make sure that the edge of my ruler is 1/4 inch from the edge of the quilt. There we go. Now I'm going to start a new pattern, and this one's going to be a little bit faster and no backtracking. You can see I shifted my ruler ever so slightly, a little bit off there. I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to be okay. All right, so here's the pattern that we're going to go with. I'm going to stitch over, down, back up, and then over. And this is going to have no backtracking, no extra stitching, and it'll be much speedier way of getting across the quilt. Here we go. So I'm aiming for that corner, and it's like, if I'm not quite there, I kind of can wiggle the ruler ever so slightly and try and get there. Again, I'm lining up the center point with the ruler with the little mark that I made. The really tricky thing, I think, more than anything else, is just being able to visualize where that ruler should be ending, and I think one thing would be to get about halfway there, and then you can pivot and, change the ruler position to get it exactly right. That one was dead on. So really, some of this is practice, some of this is just, stop at a point where it's not going to be noticeable if you are wiggling a little bit. If you wait too long, like if you get way down here and you start wiggling that line, it's going to be kind of noticeable. Okay, and now I'm repositioning the ruler again. Again, trying to line that up 1/4 inch from that edge. Here we go. And hitting that point. The thing I like about this design is that it doesn't matter if it's absolutely perfect. If your points are not exactly pointy, well, throw more thread at it. I'm going to go back in with more designs, so it's not the end of the world if these areas don't match up just exactly dead on. The overall design is very pretty, and it's almost like a robbing Peter to pay Paul effect. It has that nice curve, but there was no curving in the piecing. This is just adding a curve in the quilting, and I think it really softens the look of the squares. And as you can see, this is speeding up significantly. Now that I'm not doing any backtracking, everything I'm doing is getting me 5 inches further down the quilt. I'm coming down that nice 5 inches, hitting that point, then I'm stitching straight down towards myself 5 inches. So really, this is very efficient. And as I said before, you could stop here. I've got a batting that allows quilting up to 10 inches on this quilt, so I could easily stop here and call it done. So I think if you're looking for a really good, very quick, very simple quilting design to finish off a quilt for Christmas, I think this is going to be a great choice. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning how to quilt this curvy corner-to-corner quilting. It's really, really easy with the mini slide ruler. And the best thing about this ruler is you have the same curve on both sides. So whether you need to position the ruler to the left or rotate it around and position the ruler to the right, it's the same curve on both sides, so you're always going to get the same effect, and that makes it a lot easier, and you don't end up having to have the ruler in your non-dominant hand on an awkward side of the machine. So come and check out this awesome ruler at leahday.com/mini slide. If you'd like to find more Frame Quilting Friday videos, check them out at leaday.com/frame. I have new videos going up every Friday, so I hope that you'll come and learn more about quilting on a long arm with me. Until next time, let's go quilt!